their Pee Wee ball because I couldn't hit.
And that concludes Kim Eng's presser, leading directly into our primetime show. Thank you, Kim, for being a great appetizer. She just had her press conference here with the media. I'm Eli Sussman here. This is Fish Stripes Live with Kevin Barral, Isaac Azut, and our first-time guest, Noah Berger. Looking forward to a new Marlins homestands. Team has lost 9 out of 10 games, and I guess we could just do some quick reactions to that Kim Eng availability that I guess, Isaac, we could start with you. That, for one, I give her some credit for holding it now when the team is kind of at its lowest point. I thought she might dodge it, like push it back a couple of days for them to beat the Rockies a time or two, you know, when it's a little of an easier landing to address people at that time. But I give her some credit, at least for the timing of this, for answering the questions. And she danced around a lot of the questions, I guess. But like, what was your takeaway of what she covered, from Starling Marte to the state of the offense to the rotation, and whatever stuck out to you that you want to bring up to people?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think it's important that, you know, she did this, you know, even when times were rough. I think it was important that she, you know, she took the press conference, took the questions. She, you know, like most GMs, even Michael Hill was the best at this. You know, she did, you know, kind of jumped around some of the questions. I was really fascinated to hear about Marte. I think he's, you know, by far the best player on this team. And I'm really curious to see if she sees him as a long-term center fielder for the Marlins. And, you know, she didn't really answer that, but she did seem eager to have him there. And the other thing that stuck out to me was about Meyer and Eder, that she doesn't see them coming out. She wants them to stay in the minor leagues, which I have to respect. Maybe in September, Max Meyer makes a start or something, but I was definitely pleased to hear that, you know, she'd like him to finish the year in minor leagues, unless for some reason, you know, we're back in the hunt and, you know, we need a postseason start or something. But those are the two things that mainly stood out to me about that presser, for sure.
Yeah, I could agree with what you said. Also, when she said that she sees this team more of a pitching centric team, that actually, I have no idea. I mean, I hope she was joking. I mean, she knows what she's talking about. Obviously, she has a lot of experience, but in a way, I just don't agree with that statement. She said something about 70% of their games have been decided by 3 runs or less, meaning that the pitching has been good, is what she's trying to say, and she's comfortable with the pitching. Also, how they have been looking outside of the organization, which Craig Mish reported a couple days ago. She pretty much clarified it today. That's something good when we know she's looking outside to make maybe a move or a trade. That's also good to hear. So, I mean, and as you said, she dodged a lot of questions. She did what she had to do in this press conference, especially when the times were rough. We've lost 9 out of 10 games, so it's not looking good for the Marlins. But she came out here and she made a couple good. She answered questions that we all wanted to know. She dodged a lot of questions that we wanted to know. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the one that stuck out is kind of politely referring to the fact that the offense has been really mediocre. I mean, the one good story has been Starling Marte coming off the IL and being exactly the guy that he was before the injury. Like, I don't think people can really wrap their minds around how good Starling has been when he's been available. Like, before his injury and after it, he's putting up a 980 OPS. You know, if he had enough playing time this year, he'd be leading the National League in on-base percentage. And this is in addition to a guy that plays a good center field and is a good base runner, that he's, you know, people were very high on what he did last year, but he is even better than that. He is so far and beyond playing better than he has at any point in his career. And I mean, to that point, it kind of makes sense that there has not been any movement in terms of a contract extension, because this is a guy, just to put in perspective for these like international players, he signed when he was probably 16, 17 years old. And this is going to be his first time as a free agent. Like, he's played professional baseball for 15, 16 years for this opportunity to like cash in and really provide generational wealth for his family. So I think he has every motivation to want to play this out and see how well it goes and then enter free agency. That's kind of what I wanted to make clear to people, is that they shouldn't be panicked about that, even though we're kind of, you know, skeptical that the team is actually going to make a serious run at keeping him long-term because of the money that it would require. That I think no matter what, like, he could be playing for any team and he'd want to play this out. Right. And so that's one thing that I wanted to make clear about Starling, is that there's a lot of directions they could go with him. There's going to be so much interest in him at the trade deadline if this team is out of the race, as they currently are projected to be. But they could hold on to him through then and then make a decision after the year. And then once we get to after the year, depending on how he's performing, there's a lot of ways that could go. So I understand kind of why that was the trending topic, because he's been playing so well. It's been just really frustrating to see how the rest of this team is so inconsistent offensively. Almost everybody, you could go down the list, that there's just been so much inconsistency from basically everybody else not named Starling.
Yeah.
Well, coming back from the IL, Jorge Alfaro has been pretty good.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. He's been trying to defend. He's trying to say he's supposed to stay. He wants to stay.
He's been the Jorge Alfaro that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised with Jorge, honestly. Before the IL, I don't know if you guys remember he had that streak. He was playing really well before he injured his hamstring. Even like that little minute, that taste that he was here in between, injuries, he played well. He was swinging the bat well, having better at bats. He's come back, swung the bat well, went Oppo Taco and Fenway, which isn't easy to do. I've been pleasantly surprised with how Jorge's done, and I don't dislike the fact that he's starting catcher number 1 for the foreseeable future. It's not bad. He's also thrown out a lot of guys trying to steal too. Yeah,
I agree, man. He's been playing great. There's no other way to say it. I mean, if he continues like this, keep him on the team, man. I mean, that's all I could say.
Yeah, there's no one else to replace him. You don't want to bring up Chad again, or Banfield is light years away. So I think definitely Alfaro, they did well for now.
And Sandy Leon's been pretty good in the time he's been here. He's been all right.
Yeah.
Well, very good behind the plate.
Well, offensively hasn't been good. Defensively, he's been pretty good.
Well, he's here as a defensive catcher.
He's been good catching Sandy Alcantara. That's about it.
And Trevor.
Well, and Trevor Rogers. But
a little offense would, it's just any quality at bats. He's just failing to do, the basics sometimes at the plate, which is frustrating. But you're right. Like backup catchers, you're not supposed, you're not expected to be.
His job is to catch the ball.
Right. You're not expected to be Johnny Bench over there. But
yeah, as we're being joined by Alex Carver, he was the press conference closer with Kim Eng that we're listening into. Behind the scenes, I was playing the presser for these guys so we could digest it. So, yeah. Again, the main takeaway is just how Kim Eng, not so gently kind of referred to the fact that the offense has had its limitations this year, that they've been led by their pitching, and that really outside of Starling, there's been a lot of inconsistency from this lineup. But as Noah brought up, I mean, Alfaro has been better since he's come back from the IL, including not just hitting for power, but the strikeout rate is down a little bit. It's pretty close to that league average hitter instead of being a super extreme swing at everything approach. And I think he's already stolen 2 bases since he's been back, or at least one the other day. So, I mean, that's good to see, because that's always been the one element of his game that separates him from most other catchers. But overall, that's going to be the big question for, I guess, the series and moving forward, that this is kind of a winnable stretch for the Marlins, especially against a Rockies team that has, they probably have less talent than just about anybody else in baseball at the moment. And they play especially bad on the road, that the bar is not that high. I mean, if they score 4 runs in every game of this series, then you're probably going to like where you are at the end of it. But being consistent, even for a few games at a time, it's hard to trust from this team from what we've seen lately.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned that with the Pittsburgh team, and look what happened. We lost 3 games. I wouldn't be too overexcited to maybe sweep these guys, but yeah, you mentioned their talent. They don't have a lot of talent. Their only real known players are Charlie Blackmon and maybe Ryan Tapia, but besides that, they don't have too much more. I don't really know this pitcher, Antonio Senzaleta. That's his name. So
Senzatella.
Senzatella, yeah. I don't know too much about these other guys. I know Matt Adams in there. That's about it. I mean, it's one of these teams that we should be able to beat, honestly. So we said with Pittsburgh, and it really didn't happen.
Yeah, well, so Senzatella is actually coming off a pretty good start. His last time out, he gave a 1 earned run in 7 2/3, and he's also pitching to a pi ERA, if you will, 3.14 ERA over his last 5 starts. So he's pitching the ball well, and Marlon Sparky is going to help him out a little bit even more. So we'll see. It's going to be a tough pitcher tonight for sure.
Yeah, but Alex, I guess what I wanted to mention is one of the trending topics now that I covered on my podcast, and I covered on every time I'm in front of a microphone, I got to mention it. When are we going to see Jesus Sanchez? I've been tuned out of the lineup announcement. Is he in Jacksonville's lineup tonight? Is everything? There's no signs that he's going anywhere at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think so. Eli is my best answer to you. He is in the lineup hitting third for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp tonight, who are playing at home. So yeah, no signifiers that he's coming up. I think today is the day that they could call him up and avoid him going to Super 2. If I'm not, it's either today or tomorrow. Yeah. So you make it look very obvious if you do that and call him up. I know other teams have done it, but you make it look very obvious that that's the reason that he's not here if you call him up now. So I think they want to avoid that. I really don't think they kind of want that press that, make it that obvious, but that's probably the reason why he's not here yet. So when does he come up? I would target next week, honestly, because there's nothing more for this guy to do in the minors.
Yeah, and I think Kim mentioned if they were out of contention that they would be calling up these guys, if I'm correct.
Yeah, a few of them too. She mentioned Leywin, Jesus. She definitely said they won't hesitate to. She didn't even say no. We expect to be in contention. She said no. Yeah, we'll be calling him up.
Yeah.
Well, I think Alex is on the same page as this, at least part of it. But my plan, starting now, I would call him up now, and I would DFA Sierra, who unfortunately has just not shown much growth as a player. He does some things nice. He's limited in a lot of other aspects. And they don't really need him as a backup center fielder if Starling is healthy, and Adam Duvall showed that he could play center earlier this year. So I would call up Jesus, play him really close to every day in right field, have some sort of platoon in left field between Duvall and Dickerson, because what we've seen with Duvall and Dickerson right now is people are frustrated with those guys, asking, the momentum is building to trade them, but they're playing so poorly right now that they don't really have any value out there. So to me, I think the best way to kind of salvage those guys and what we can expect from them the rest of the way is kind of put them in situations when they could be successful by having Dickerson almost always face right-handed pitching and Duvall almost always facing left-handed pitching as much as possible. And then at least, once we get later in the year, that they could get you something in return from another team that is more desperate to plug those guys into that really specific role. That as long as you try to force feed them as everyday players or anything close to that, they're going to come short of that because that's not who they are right now at this stage of their season. Well, Noah, you're our first time guest. I don't have your thoughts on Magneuris Sierra and what he does with this team, because it's been an interesting ride about how they've used him. And remarkably, he is stuck on this roster all year. How much do you think that's going to continue throughout the year? Can he actually stick around even as being this kind of guy?
I happen to be an extreme Magneuris Sierra fanboy. We win when he's in the lineup. It's just he's got a cannon for an arm. He hits when he needs to. I'm not saying he's the best, but
Noah, my brother.
No, am I on the wrong track here?
No, there's no wrong. Well, maybe. I don't know if he hits when he needs to. That's the thing. But you're right. For a fourth, fifth outfielder, he's not the worst option in the world. But I agree with Eli. If someone were to be designated, the only reason he's on the team is because he's out of options. That's just straight facts. And I think if there was someone to be designated, be him. Keep Brinson if you need. I know he's down right now, but I would call up Jesus the second the Super 2 status comes out. I don't care if you get the press for it. It's just what everyone does. The Mariners did it. Everyone does it. And I think that's a better option than Magneuris.
I would definitely have Brinson over Magneuris Sierra. That is easy, especially with how Brinson's been playing lately.
Pick your poison.
Oh no.
Why do you guys hate on Brinson so much?
It's a little bit obvious why we hate Brinson, but
no one hates the guy. He's a very good guy. I've met him.
Well, yeah,
he's a very good guy.
Offensively, he isn't
good. Got a feel for him.
Yeah. If anybody who lives in the Jacksonville area, be sure to get tickets to those games. Brinson is going to be a star down there.
Oh my God.
Also, the next couple months, it's going to be a great show to watch him down there because.
Oh my God.
I mean, I could give you my thoughts, Eli, but I think you know exactly where I am on Mr. Sierra. The last I checked, he had a 54 WRC plus. I just checked it again. He's brought that up to a rousing 61. So credits to Max for that. Yeah, man, this is a guy that could have been DFA'd a lot earlier in this season, you know, to get somebody else here, to get a new face in, to call up a guy. It's just, I mean, he just doesn't do much. He doesn't hit. He does have a good arm. He is fast. He's a lefty hitter. Sure. But outside of a couple of bats in the COVID year, Eli, what has this guy done for this organization? And he just keeps sticking around. I can't explain it. If you really want him, we have a clone of him in the minors in Brian Miller, who I think is a better bat. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. That roster spot, it shouldn't be going to Magneuris Sierra. I'm sorry.
Hey, you also had that great September.
Half of the minor leagues outfielders should be up there before Magneuris Sierra.
Call up JD Miller.
By the way, Brian Miller is also faster slightly than Magneuris Sierra.
That's impressive.
I mean, like, yeah, just if you really want Magneuris Sierra, you have the exact same player, if not definitely a little bit better in Brian Miller, and he's big league ready. He deserves a shot, man. I mean, obviously we're talking about Jesus, but if you need that bench roll type, Brian Miller's your guy. I mean, come on.
I don't know. He's actually struggled a little bit this year, which is surprising. You know, I thought he would hit a little bit, but he's struggling pretty mightily this year.
Yeah, he struggled first month of the season. I answered this. Eli actually asked me this question on our podcast. But this last week, he's been really good. I think he's getting back to hitting to his strengths. That's another conversation. I know we're talking about Mags, but Brian Miller, man, he deserves a shot.
Yeah, I agree.
We did have – yeah, go ahead.
With Sierra, it kind of reminds me of Brinson. They're in the same situation. For some reason, they just haven't been DFA'd. The Marlins must see something, man. And I don't see what the Marlins see. I don't think any of us see what the Marlins see in Magneuris Sierra and Lewis Brinson, just to bring him up too. But you know, there has to be something
more what they gave up. You know, it's let go for sure. You know, if
right.
Yeah, if Brinson was traded for D Gordon instead, he would have been gone.
He would have been gone. Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, and you know, Brinson, he still has tools. They just haven't come to fruition in the major leagues. Magneuris Sierra, he has a lot less tools than Lewis Brinson. I'll put it politely. There you go.
Yeah, I'll have to do some research on this claim that Sierra was wearing high socks and then got rid of the high socks and hasn't been the same player since. I don't know if there's any validation to that theory, but I'll have to look into that. Yeah. As somebody brought up in the comment, they were asking about Sixto and Edward Cabrera because for people that haven't been following attention, Edward finally made his first rehab start on what was that, Sunday? Yeah, and he's lined up to make another one this coming Friday, and he looked good in that first outing, so all signs pointing up for him, but he does still have to prove himself a little bit, I'd suppose, at AAA before he's not like a near-term option. And I mean, this is something I was just discussing earlier today with Peter Pratt on Fish Across the Pond about the state of this rotation. And I mean, there've been a lot of suggestions about calling up different prospects to kind of plug that hole that they now have two holes that are still like totally up in the air. It's crazy that every time you think maybe they figured something out, even your favorite, Alex, Daniel Castano, like he goes on the injured list all of a sudden. That was strange. They called him up, and then before he gets into a game, he goes on the IL with a shoulder issue. So now Braxton Garrett getting the call in place of him. Do we think, Alex, Braxton is starting tomorrow? Because the Marlins still haven't announced that.
Okay.
It looks like that. Christina DeNicola from MLB.com also posted on Twitter to that effect. So that's what it looks like. I mean, I guess I could go bullpen day again, but I mean, honestly, Braxton, I think, is on at least 6 days rest, if not more. So I think he's actually on like 7 or 8 days, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look at it. But yeah, he hasn't pitched for a little while. He's rested up. His pitch count's worked up. He can go 80, 90 pitches. So, I mean, yeah, he'd be fine to go tomorrow, I think. I honestly think that the Marlins wanted him to get more time in AAA to work out his command issues. Mattingly kind of spoke to that the other day, but did say he's been throwing well lately, and his last 3 starts have been good. I just worry about throwing a hitch in a guy's development like that with all this up and down, but I guess it's needed right now. But man, I was holding out that Braxton could be really, really good, and I still had that hope, but I think this may deter him just because, you know, the movement and they're breaking the routine, and it's just not good for a prospect. But we'll see.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I mean, why isn't Braxton Garrett up? I mean, he deserves a chance now. I just found out he just got called up. So, yeah, I expect him to start tomorrow. I mean, bullpen games have not been good for us this season. That's all I could say. So I'd rather have a starter in there to at least pitch 4 or 5 innings and give us some stability, especially since the bullpen. I don't want Mattingly to do what he did with the Mets game, just put one pitcher in each inning. That's not the way to go. So I'd rather have a pitcher there, a starter, to at least give you 4 or 5 innings, stabilize the game a little bit, keep it stable, and then bring out the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, just as a close for me on this, Eli, honestly, I would have rather left Braxton down and let him continue the season and gain that polish in AAA, just because of those command issues, man. I think that's really his only issue is, when he falls behind in counts, he gets in trouble. And he has been good his last 2 starts, but before that it was also the same thing. So what I would have done, obviously I'm not the GM, but what I would have done personally is I would have created a 40-man spot and called up a lower risk prospect, maybe Josh Haysmith. That would have been my decision.
Yeah, I brought his name up a while ago. I've been wrong about that. For whatever reason, they're not in any hurry to bring him up, even though he's doing all right. And he's exactly as you're labeling him. He's a guy they don't have much invested in, but he's been around for a long time in high levels, either AAA or just passing by in the majors. That he'd be the guy that I would think maybe we do now see him at this point, because they really are running out of alternatives now. I mean, hopefully things progress well with Holloway and with Neidert and they get these guys back, but it comes to a point soon where you just don't have anybody else on the 40-man roster because everybody is on the 10-day IL. So there'll come a point, we'll see with these particular injuries who may have to also go on the 60-day to clear that spot for them to put someone new on the 40-man. But this all, as Sean brought up in the comments a while ago, that this is just catching up to them for the lack of urgency they had early in the year. I mean, as soon as in March, when Gio retires, when Sixto gets hurt, that's the time where you need to push any button you can to find some sort of experienced pitcher to fill the hole on the staff. And they've chipped away doing these really minor signings. I don't think people have even noticed some of the pickups they've made recently. Eric Stout, who pitched in the majors 3 years ago, they just plucked him kind of off the scrap heap. No offense to Eric Stout. I guess we'll see him in AAA soon. And of course, they got Josh A. Smith, but they waited. That was all the way, I think, the very end of April or the very beginning of May when they got him. And by that time,
didn't we have him last year?
Yeah, same guy that they had in the bullpen last year. Okay, an underwhelming guy in the bullpen, but he has a lot of starting experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, this is just the inactivity early on, the lack of urgency to add that depth. The fact that they went into the regular season with a 4-man rotation, and then almost as soon as that started, Eliezer got hurt. That they didn't add actual major league depth in this situation and slowly chipped away. And for people asking, what do they do? Who else can they get at this point? It's kind of too late. At this point, you have who you have. And the only way that these guys just aren't available. You just don't have anybody that's really available and is going to make a difference at this stage of the season. And if you're a team that frankly is now in last place, and the distance between them and first place is now all of a sudden bigger than it's ever been this year, it doesn't make sense to give up actual prospects at this point to just plug a hole in the rotation.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. You don't want to risk the future of a good prospect like Braxton Garrett just to come up, make a few starts, and then go back down. You want him pitching regularly in games, and you want him on a regular routine. So, yeah, I would have brought up a lower level prospect or player, maybe with more experience like Josh Smith. Again, not on the 40-man, but another name that maybe you could have seen that may be a guy that could be an option either in the rotation or bullpen. He's been doing pretty good is Jake Fishman. So, yeah, just a name like that, not a major name. I really, as much as I love Braxton Garrett and like watching him pitch, I don't want him in the majors right now, honestly. But we'll see how he does.
Yeah, just imagine Gio Gonzalez in this lineup, in this rotation right now. Might have not been the greatest thing in the world, but it would have been a help. He would have been helping this team right now, pitching for the team he grew up watching. I was surprised he retired, and it's okay. That happens. So
That whole
and
thing bothers me.
Eli did mention Tanner Roark at the start of the season. He signed with the Braves. That would have been a nice option, even though he wasn't the greatest pitcher by any means. He's not a good pitcher this season. He hasn't been good when he was with the White Sox, if I'm correct, or the Blue Jays. It was the Blue Jays. So I mean, those are just some options you could have. And I was saying this the other day. If the Marlins are in that mode where they want to buy, I would call up Washington. I know it's in the division, but I would call Washington, and I'd maybe try to call in for Patrick Corbin. That would be a pretty good option. Washington might not be playing for anything right now. I mean, I might be crazy for saying it, but it wouldn't be a bad option.
Yeah, I appreciate the outside the box thinking, but his contract is going to get in the way of that. Corbin is.
Oh,
yes, but I think he has 3 more years after this year.
Oh, okay.
For a guy,
I hadn't seen the contract. That's why I was just mentioning Washington the situation. So
yeah, he got crazy money, Patrick Corbin. And just stating the obvious really quick on the Gio Gonzalez thing. I guess, I'm not there, easier said than done, but, you signed Gio Gonzalez for the sole purpose of, just eating up innings, possibly as a veteran. And when he retires, they didn't replace him with any sort of veteran, stopgap option. And so I don't you sign him for the reason because in case there's injuries for the young guys, but you didn't replace him. So I don't understand, now it's too late. We're already in June and there's not really pitchers left to get for cheap like that.
I mean, I'll go back to it. And I know we mentioned this on previous shows of these, Eli, when it was happening. Anibal Sanchez, why were they out? Why were they out? They were at the workout. They know who he is. The organization knows him. He can still pitch. He's proved that. Why were they went to that one workout and then they just said, okay, no, bye. I didn't understand that. I still don't. I mean, yeah, Gonzalez retiring, maybe, that threw a hitch, but you have to replace that. You can't drag your feet and just say, okay, we'll be fine. After missing a full year, injuries are going to happen. Maybe you don't expect it to this extent, but you can't just sit there and do nothing, man. And I think they really messed up in this inactivity. That's overall. I mean, off season too, not just now. Inactive off season. They did get a couple pieces, nothing major, unless you want to say Anthony Bass is major, but Duvall, I guess. But yeah, it's just inactivity, man. I mean, I don't expect her to come in and trade a guy every day or anything like that, but you got to do something. You got to get that depth somewhere, and these guys wouldn't have been expensive, so I don't get it.
And something I will mention with Anibal is he did pitch. He's been pitching. He was with the Venezuelan team pitching for the pre-Olympic qualifiers, and he looked pretty solid. He wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but he was solid enough to be on this Marlins rotation and be pitching in the 4th or 5th spot in this starting rotation. He pitched a couple games. The only one I really did see was the one where he played against Cuba. He was solid. He only allowed, I think, 3 runs throughout the whole game, but Venezuela had a pretty big lead throughout that whole game.
Could be that Anibal himself said no.
I mean, it's a guy fighting for a contract anywhere he can get it. I don't think he'd say no. I just think the Marlins are out.
On today's lineup and matchup, Starling Marte hitting against Antonio Senzatella. It's a 650, 625 average against him.
Well, how many times has he gone to
9
at that against him?
This is a small sample size, but
okay.
Yeah, I didn't even bother looking up the sample sizes because I figured everybody was small. But he did. Obviously, he was with Arizona for only. I guess he faced them a couple times then, and probably once prior to that with the Pirates. But small sample size. Starling is great.
He has 97 plate appearances against any current Rockies pitchers, and he has a 323 average against them.
So. Let's bring up one more comment that I have on the lineup, and of course it's prospect centric, but I'll bring it up. You have Jose Devers with the big league team, and he's sitting on the bench. He's a 21-year-old kid who's never played above A ball until this season, and you have him sitting on a major league bench. I mean, I guess you could argue that there's value there, that he's getting experience being around players, but that's for spring training. We need this guy playing, man. We need this guy playing and getting at bats in the minors, getting his reps in, doing his work. It's just, I mean, the way this roster is right now, and I know that this is necessary because of the injuries, but the guys that they went to versus the guys that they didn't, these bigger name prospects that are just here wasting away. I hate it, man. I hate it.
Jose Devers was a jewel of that trade, right? Like him and Guzman, but right now Devers, obviously. You have John Birdie playing over him, who's hitting
and Isan Diaz.
And you know what? Isan, fine. You want to see what he can do? Fine. I understand that. But what are you doing starting John Birdie over Jose Devers, who was swinging the bat very well? You had him leading off for a couple of games in a row, and he played pretty well. One of them, he struggled, obviously, whatever. But I don't get it. How you're going to have Jose Devers? It's not like it's a lefty pitching tonight, so I would definitely have Jose Devers. The guy can put the bat on the ball. He's fast. He's great play discipline. I would have him playing day in, day out. And if he struggles, okay, send him back down to play again every day. But right now, he's just wasting away on the bench for maybe a pinch hit opportunity where it's just not his game. He's never played off the bench. So that's just, my take on that. Actually, it's sad because I forgot he's on the big league team because he hasn't played, and that makes no sense.
I mean, and they bring up Luis Marte, who is doing a much lower level prospect or player who's been around much longer in the minor leagues than Jose Devers and has experience playing at the upper levels. Don't have a lot invested in him. Like I said before with Garrett, he's a low risk guy, and he's up for 2 days and they DFA him. So, I mean, the way that this has gone, man, it frustrates me. Honestly, you could probably hear it in my voice. I'm passionate about this stuff, man. But these kids, these younger kids, these bigger name prospects, the guys in the top 15, top 20, they don't need to be here right now. They need to be in the minor leagues, period.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not only because of the awkward prospect development trajectory here. It's also because specifically with Devers, this is a guy that's had nagging injuries a couple years. Like he has never had this opportunity to play every day throughout his summer because of those injuries, because he was at lower levels that don't even have a full schedule. And I mean, simply the fact of simply yanking him up and down a couple of times, like that's a lost opportunity. And then once he gets in the big leagues, this inconsistency, I'm totally like befuddled by it. Absolutely. Because even if you look at AAA, like they have, obviously he would take precedent over any of the guys at AAA right now. They had to bring in Justin Twine. They brought back Justin Twine to fill as a stopgap at AAA just because Devers wasn't down there and because they didn't want to, for whatever reason, they didn't want to send Devers down. So they brought back a guy that I was fascinated with for like a second back in 2018 to fill that hole. They picked up that other guy from Indie Ball, Gally Cribbs Jr. That's a good opportunity for him. But frankly, he's a guy that's not obviously, it's not really in their plans whatsoever. So the playing time is there for him in the minor leagues without disrupting any other prospects. And the way that they've handled this is kind of messy. I really went into this on a separate show. I don't want to like reiterate myself because we're kind of on the same page here that this is rough for him. But the one thing that's nice is that he gets major league money while he's in the major leagues.
Sure.
And, he's a new, for people that don't know, he's a new father as of just a few months ago. He's got a kid to support, and it's great. He already has his money coming in.
How old is he?
How old is Devers? Devers is 21.
I'm older than him.
I'm much older than him, and he beat me.
I'm the same age. That's scary.
He's 21, and he looks about 16. And it's been fun to see him in the majors, but I mean we're all on the same page pretty much that it's not fair to him. It's really it's something that might catch up with him later on, that he's not getting these reps when he should be in the minors, as we're only about 18 minutes away from first pitch of the series. I guess you want to talk about Pablo a little bit, because Pablo is having a pretty good year, and this is a tasty matchup for him because they gave him this extra rest heading into this game. The Rockies,
I liked that.
The Rockies are really struggling offensively, especially on the road, and we know that this bullpen has been kind of unshaky lately, a variety of places. That this is a big opportunity for him to go deep into this game, and not to look too far ahead, but someone that even has an outside shot at being an all-star this year if he keeps it up, because of just how consistently he's done at preventing runs. Kevin, I guess we'll go to you about how you like his chances opening up this series, and then he's going to pitch. He's the one guy that's going to pitch twice on this homestand, so he'll have a pretty big impact on this entire week for the Marlins.
Yeah, Pablo's great. He's been great this season. I mean, if he had run support and he had a good bullpen to finish off the games, he would be incredible. I mean, it's only when Pablo starts is what I've noticed. I mean, nothing to the bullpen or this offense. This offense has been up and down this whole year, but the bullpen especially now, it just hasn't seemed to help the pitchers finish out games. This is why we need Pablo to go deep in the games. Pablo in general has been great. He's been playing to an all-star. I wouldn't say all-star level, but he's for sure up there to be one of those pitchers for the all-star. In that all-star game, the ballot's out. You can't vote for pitchers, I'm pretty sure, so not yet at least. So it's going to be interesting what happens with Pablo. I mean, this is a guy who is a really good pitcher, and he has a great opportunity tonight against a team like the Colorado Rockies, who have not much to play for at this point. So Pablo has this good chance tonight. He could go 7, maybe 8. That's maybe reaching not too much, but I think 8 could be a good spot for him to finish.
Yeah, it's been really great to see Pablo pitch the way he has this year, like a true bona fide, number 2, 3 type guy. After all the injuries he's had, the shoulder, the struggles, it really is a blessing for this team that he's pitched the way he has, like best human being in the world, and it's great to see him pitch the way he has.
Couldn't be happier.
Agreed. I mean, outside of Sandy and Trevor, obviously he's the next guy that we've looked at and said, wow, yeah, just keeps going, keeps getting better. Love Pablo, great person, good pitcher. All-stars, yeah, definitely could see Pablo, Trevor, maybe Sandy. Position players, I don't have much on that.
Come on, you don't want Jazz in the All-Star game?
Jazz.
You want him there. I just,
injuries.
Exactly. And he's been injured.
And
I would say Aguilar is the only one I would even consider to put on the ballot for the All-Star game. I mean, he's been the
leads
best.
the National League in RBIs still. I know. Yeah. Myself especially, I'll be the first one to say that RBIs don't really tell you a huge story, but he's that matters. All the runs he's driven. If he was half the player at home that he was on the road, then his overall season would be kind of on that All-Star level. That's going to be something to watch for sure. Is if he could finally have some power whatsoever in these home games. It's not something that I don't think there's any deeper meaning to that. It's just a really fluky coincidence. It's early in the year.
He's cursed at home.
12 home runs at home and 12 home runs on the road and 0 at home. I mean, nobody else is like that this year. It's weird.
I don't think it's too much of a coincidence. I think Marlins Park, it is a nightmare to try and hit the ball out in that ballpark. It is. It really is, but is PNC. He cleared the wall in PNC a few times in left field, which that ball would have gone out of Marlins Park as well. So it's not all that.
Yeah, I mean, on the ballot, maybe Sandy would be a good consideration too. He's been great too. Mainly these pitchers is what we should.
2 years ago,
the pitchers is what we should be considering to put on the ballot mainly. Once it comes out for the pitchers, I already voted. I know I put Jesus on there. I think he deserves it. He's just had a good season. I think it's been better than his 2018 season, if I'm correct, or it's going that way for sure. So Jesus has to be on the ballot.
Well, Kevin, the thing with the pitchers is that they let the coaches in the league decide, and they don't even let the fans decide on that, which is weird. I mean, that's something that it's always been the case. I feel like that could be tweaked a little bit because, I mean, pitchers are people too. and we have opinions on them. That's always been very strange, and it's annoying this year for sure because the Marlins obviously are led by those three guys. So it's weird that all-star voting is going on, and yet we can't really say anything about the guys that are actually carrying Marlins at this point. Jazz is going to be interesting just because second base is a pretty light position in the National League this year. I mean, Jazz has been really inconsistent. I was the one kind of early in the year. I didn't want to upset people, but I did not like people kind of referring to him as a superstar or one of the faces of baseball after a few weeks in April. That he's a guy that obviously he has that potential, and I mean the skills show up every way you look at it. He's great. He's just a guy that is going to be prone to streakiness at the plate. And what we're seeing is that, especially since he came off that first injury, his strikeout rate is super high. He could still be a decent player when he's doing that. It's just that he still has a lot of work to do to be the best version of himself. Yeah, and that's an interesting time to check in, I guess, Alex, about what the entire Jazz experience this year, because it has been interrupted by a few injuries. So that's something to point out that has worked against him. The overall numbers, I mean, they're so much better, of course. They're light years ahead of Brinson or Isan or any of these other former top prospects that have failed to make the transition. But at the same time, we need to adjust where our minds were back in April, just to this reality that he's still someone that has some room to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you guys listened to the presser. You heard Kim say it. He's definitely got room to be more than what he is this year, of course, as he grows up in this league. But I think Kim kind of said it best, is you kind of want to see where he's headed this year, right? You kind of want to see those signs start to show, and I think he's shown those signs and more. So, yeah, it's just a guy that continues to get better, man. Honestly, I everything that I've seen from Jazz while he's been healthy is just a continuation of where he was in his minor league career, man. It's refreshing to finally see a prospect come up and immediately have those skills translate to Major League Baseball. That's something the Marlins haven't had in the past in this system. I mean, yeah, so it's great to see these prospects just come up and start to continue their development immediately at the Major League level by being effective like this. You see it with Trevor as well. And there's so many more down in the minors that are on their way that I think are capable of that same exact thing. So great to see. No complaints about Jazz. Just stay healthy, man, please.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you watched the pregame on Bally. They just showed clips of Miguel Rojas taking grounders with his finger bandaged up outside of the glove. And he looked very uncomfortable, but he looked like he wanted to be back on the field.
Yeah, he was on a podcast the other day, and they told him to show me the finger. He showed the finger. It was bandaged up, and then he said he was at the stadium doing this podcast. He said after that he was gonna go work out and he's trying his best to get back on the field. So we see how anxious he is to get back on this team and help them win.
When he slid and hit that finger, and they announced it was just a dislocation, I was like, there's no way a finger could bend like that and not be broken.
Yeah, and you see him uncomfortable as he is. I guess the bad news would be you heard Don Mattingly say today that Miggy is ahead of Brian Anderson. So I mean, Brian Anderson is he said that during the presser today that he thinks Miggy is slightly ahead of Brian Anderson.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably still looking at 2 to 3 weeks on Miguel Rojas potentially coming back. But, and I said this on my podcast today, what's big about the Marlins coming home? Miguel Rojas can go to the locker room. He can get in these guys' face and say, hey, guys, what's going on? He can rally this team up. He can get that leadership role to come out. Even if he's not on the field, he still provides such a great instrument of wealth to this Marlins organization. I saw him going out to Roger Dean Chevrolet to check minor league games. He's checking in with VMJ. Like, just awesome. He always wants to be around this team. And now that the Marlins are off of this road trip, they're back. They're going against a not great team with the Colorado Rockies. They're also struggling. So, yeah, man, just for him to be back with the team, even if he's not playing, is huge. Love it.
I think Miggy should do the mound visits instead of Mel.
Good idea.
Didn't Miggy say that every time he goes to the mound and talks to the pitcher himself, they get out of the jam?
Yeah, there was a little trend there where every time he came to visit from shortstop, it calmed the pitchers down and got them out of some jams for sure. It doesn't work every time, but
at the end of the day, so.
But like Alex said, it's good to have him back in the dugout with the team. He couldn't be there in Pittsburgh and Boston, but it's definitely great to have him there. It's a long series. We're gonna have a heck of a series against the Braves over the weekend, and it's definitely gonna be good to have his veteran leadership in the dugout in the clubhouse for sure.
So something interesting Alex mentioned was that Miggy was ahead of Brian Anderson, and Eli the other day posted on Fish Stripes a trade to get a third baseman. I think it was Eduardo Escobar from the Diamondbacks. That makes a lot more sense now that I think of it.
It made a lot of sense like a week ago. Things change fast, Kevin. They've lost almost all those games, and they fell. That 1 week did a lot of damage to their playoff odds, which is
that was a buyer.
Well, I'm thinking at the point where they're a buyer, not a seller. So
right.
Okay.
I'm always
get ahead of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, for sure.
Alex Contreras, what's up, bro?
What's up, everybody? Hey, man, I just want to stop by. I made it to the late part of the show. I just want to stop by and say go Fish. Keep your head up. It was a terrible week, but we going to bounce back. Cheers to that, man. Let's go Fish.
Starts with today, man. Anything less than a sweep, it would just take me to my prediction. But yeah, anything less than a sweep, man, I think you might not be happy having the Braves come into town.
Since 2010, we are, I think it was 24-11 against the Rockies at home.
Okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah, Craig mentioned that every time the Rockies come to town, they just play horrible, except for opening day in 2019, which they killed us.
I remember that.
Yeah, some good history against our 1993 expansion partner, right? Also, one of our best pitching performances of all time came against the Colorado Rockies. I won't say the 2-word term because I don't want to jinx Pablo out of anything, but one of them, and the first one in Marlins history, came against the Colorado Rockies.
Yes. No, vividly.
Something to look out for tonight.
Couple things real quick, man. Since we're talking about the Rockies, and coincidentally, we were born the same year, 93. It's crazy how they got so many freaking players hitting for the cycle, but we have so many no-hitters. How crazy is that? And then on another note, Pablo
won't say the C word.
Pablo's gonna be on the mound, and like I have a feeling he's gonna tell, "Hey Sandy, hold my beer," and he's gonna go for that whole complete game. I really hope he could. Yo, it's time to really show who's the ace, bro. You talk to other players around the league, and people really recognize this Pablo, saying, "Hey, Pablo's he's a true ace of the team." Now, no taking no credit away from Sandy. but I want this competition. I want them to go toe for toe. This is kind of like the Josh Beckett, AJ Burnett type of vibe. Like, let's go. Who's got the stuff today?
Yeah. What's your prediction for the series, Alex? Alex Contreras, these next 3 games, how many of the Marlins win? Who's going to do well?
I need Pablo to take this game, and I'm counting on Mr. Rogers to go out and keep adding to that National League Rookie of the Year candidate portfolio, all that. Put those stats up, baby. I went to Boston to go see my guy out there, bro. It was turned up. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Kevin, what's your prediction for the series?
For sure they win tonight. I'm not sure about tomorrow. Depends who the starter is. If it's Braxton Garrett, we'll see. I think they lose. I think they'll win. I think they'll take 2 out of 3.
That's my guy.
Isaac.
I think tonight's going to be a little tougher than you guys think. This guy's been pitching well for the Rockies the last 5 games. Marlon Sparks not going to help. Our offense, lightning. But I think Paulo keeps us in the game. It might be one of those games where we don't score because it's Paulo pitching. But I say we still come out with like a 2-1 win tonight and we sweep the series.
Okay.
Lone Depot at El Depot, baby.
No.
They put the logo up on the building on the stadium.
I saw it driving today.
Yeah. So what do you think, Noah? What's your first prediction?
If we win tonight, I think we can sweep the series. If we lose tonight, I think we take 1 out of 3.
Just one?
We need to build the momentum.
Well, we saw what happened with Pittsburgh. I don't blame you.
Bro, if we win 1 out of 3 this series,
I'll be very disappointed. But I think if we don't win tonight, this is just the agony is going to continue.
Well, look what happened with Pittsburgh. We said they're going to win 3 out of 4, and look what happened. We lost 3 out of 4. So
just don't get swept. Please don't get swept. Oh.
Yeah.
And Mr. Fish on the Farm, your prediction.
Oh boy. Let's see. I'll give you the prediction that I hope occurs. I say the Marlins sweep this series. Okay. And I'll give you a bold prediction, Eli. I'll say that Braxton Garrett starts the game tomorrow and goes at least 5 strong innings and doesn't allow more than 3 runs. So a sweep, and Braxton shows what he's got. There you go.
Him to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Braxton, has a lot in the tank there, and I think I'm excited to see him. He had some great starts last year against the Phillies. I like him, man. That curveball, we all know it plays. If he has that command, he can be pretty darn hard to hit. So I say we sweep the series. Braxton will be, and I get a nice little bridge guy between Trevor and Pablo.
Yeah.
I will. I'll go with the Marlins winning 2 out of 3. People know how big a fan I am of Anthony Bender throughout this entire process. I think at one point there's going to be a crazy game, and Bender's going to be pitching deep into the game, and he needs to bat for himself in extra innings. And I think Anthony Bender is going to have a walk-off hit in this series to win one of the games.
Oh my God.
He's going to solidify himself as one of the emerging stars.
I thought my prediction was bold. Wow.
In baseball.
Yeah,
yours is bold. Yours is bold. His is outlandish.
Some Bert Badenhop stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yes. There you go.
You could have been worse than saying Anthony Bender is going to get a walk-off hit and said that Magneuris Sierra is going to do it. So credit to you there, Eli.
Hey, I would.
Which one's crazier?
Well, Simber almost got it against that Mets game. So
had he hit that, I would have bought his jersey right then and there.
If he hit that, he would have been. I don't even know, man. That would have been crazy.
We're going to wrap it up here, though. Right before first pitch of the series, first-time guest, Noah Berger. You killed it out here. Thank you. We appreciate your Fish Stripe support. And, of course, with Kevin and Isaac, Alex Carver, Alex Contreras. We hope things are going well wherever you are. Probably working on another movie in the works, but nothing can stop him from following the Marlins and checking in. And that was awesome, man. So, yeah, things shaping up all right for the series. It better go well. Otherwise, I can't imagine the atmosphere around this team if they lose it somehow. But, bigger things ahead once the Braves come to town. And we are officially on Jesus Sanchez watch any day. That's the one topic that's going to be top of mind for us on Fish Stripes is when he comes up and how the team adjusts around him. And get your all-star votes in. I'm a big advocate of that. I'm tired of Marlins fans being overlooked in that discussion. Even though we don't really have any position players that deserve to be there, vote for them anyway. It's fun to mess with the process. As always, appreciate the support. Go Fish.